All right. Roger's been sitting around for about an hour since his last tour, so he's ready to go. This is the second of what will likely be 4 tours for him today. Not terribly busy. Pretty easy day for our big guy up here. You're not right, big guy. We're going to make sure the street's clear and we'll be on our way. Come on, big guy. Let's go. Step up. Come on, Raj. Let's go. Come on. You got anything? There you go. I know. Wake up. I know. Wake up. Break time's over. Step up. Step up, big guy. All right. Anybody ever been here before? Done this before? Okay. Well, welcome back. Or if you've been here before, if you've not been here before, welcome. Step off. So my name is Patrick. I'll be driving you around here this afternoon. I am a local, born and raised here. Except my time in the Army, I've lived here my whole life. Step up. Step up. I've studied what's around you. American history, urban history, Southern history. I got 2 degrees with my GI Bill, so thanks, taxpayers. Appreciate it. Step up. We're not going back inside.
Ah, this is what he wants.
But I'm not why you're here. You did not come for me. As was made abundantly clear by you asking the horse's name before mine. You think I didn't hear that? I'm not why you're here. You came for the conveyance. You came for this big, beautiful Belgian beast up here. You're good. You're good. This up here is Roger. And
I recorded him.
Yes, everyone's got his name down, right? Okay, there we go. All right, cool. Just making sure you're keeping track of everything. That's all, folks. Very important information to know who I am, too. My goodness. But I am a local. Roger is not. Roger is from Amish country. It's where we get all these big boys from. See, he's doing what he was bred to do right now, and that's pull stuff. He's a draft horse. He's a Belgian draft horse, to be precise. He's got the tan coat, blonde mane, blonde tail, all hallmarks of the Belgian. You're also going to see the ones that look like cows. They'll kind of have like a black and white look to them. Those are North American spotted drafts. You're also going to see the ones that are white or turning white or deep brown, almost black color. Those are French Percheron draft horses. And draft means to pull. That's why I keep saying that word over and over again. He weighs just over 2,000 pounds, but he can pull multiple times his own weight without wheels. Yeah, this is nothing to him. Any of you could get this thing moving with all of us on it. The problem is stopping it. That's where he comes in. Yeah, there has to be so much weight. Step up. So much mass in front of the carriage to bring it to a stop over and over again, so as not to cause any damage to their knees and ankles and that sort of thing. That's why you'll see like one big Roger or 2 smaller animals pulling these things around town. There just has to be so much mass in front of us, that's all. But he can take us anywhere we got to go very easily and very ably. I just don't know where we're going to go yet. I got to find out. The city's going to tell me where I take you. They want to make sure we're all spread out. We're not holding traffic, ambulances. And also our historic district's real big. It's 98 square blocks. And we cannot see that in 1 hour with Roger. You can't do that in a car, let alone with him. But those bus tours that you see around town, those take 90 minutes, and those still don't see everything. So we can't see it all with Roger, but we can see a good chunk. I just don't know which chunk until we get here. See? We're going to take care of some housekeeping, tell them how many people are on the carriage, what horse we're driving. Hello. I'm on carriage 425, driving Roger, and I have 14 adults, 1 children. All right, so this bingo ball machine is telling us where to go. Whatever color ball popped up would correspond to a part of the city I get to show you. I can go wherever I want. Within a part of the city they assign to me within reason. But if I go outside of that part of the city, I will receive a $1,087 fine. Thank you very much. So if you'd like to go in, anywhere you want, put some money together, hey, whatever. It's all good. Otherwise, keep on the straight and narrow here. Also, this is their way of making sure we don't work Roger too long. When that comes back, they know he's back. We got 75 minutes to get Roger back now. Of course, the company is subject to fines for working the animals too much. So there's many reasons why we got all this in place. But I know where we're going now. Good. We're going that way. We're going toward the southeastern part of our peninsula. That is what a 1A means, that yellow ball that we got. We're going to see all the stuff that you were told you want to see. Isn't that exciting?
Yes.
You even know what any of it is?
I know.
That's all right. Step up. But it's your tour, not mine. It's also not Roger's. It's yours. You paid to be here, not me. And Roger also did not pay for you either. Because, he doesn't know what currency is. So, ask questions. Please do. I'll answer them as best I can, tell you where you can't find an answer. You do have a kid here, but she seems old enough to understand advanced concepts, so have at it. It's all good. Step up. Come on, Roger. But yeah, anything about Roger, the city as a whole, past, present, future, it's all good. But I'm warning you ahead of time. If you got on this carriage, expecting an hour bless your hearts to rant about Yankees and junk. Well, I'm sorry in advance, because that stuff ain't real, man. We do real history on these tours. The real stuff's better anyway. So ask questions, please do. Anybody got anything before we get too far into this? I know we just met. We go along, go, hey Patrick, hey stupid, I'll answer either. It's all good. But I have a question for you. Don't worry, it's not too hard. I know you're on vacation. You might have just had lunch, feeling a little bit logy maybe, but it's all good. It's not too hard. Obviously, we're very complicated here, right? The bingo ball machine told us where to go. High-speed stuff, right? Yeah. Boundary Street was the northern boundary of town. Market Street's got a market on it. Broad Street's real wide. And Water Street's where there used to be water. So why, pray tell, would we ever call this Church Street then? Oh, they did repeat once, Roger. My goodness, people, come on, it's that thing. I mean, that big honker right there, don't you think? Yeah, that ain't just, that's not just any church in front of you, though. This is the oldest congregation church in the city. Step up! St. Philip's, founded 1680. 343 years of continuous service and worship here at St. Philip's, which makes it easy. Not just the oldest congregation in this city, it's the oldest to be found anywhere in the Deep South, period. I'm just waiting to see what this person's doing. I'm not the danger out here. Now, the original St. Philip's, that's not what you're looking at. The original was built somewhere else entirely, and that one burned down. There's a lot of fires back then, but it's okay, because they built a second St. Philip's. Bigger, better, and badder than the first. Right here, on this very site before you. And that one burned down too. That's the third one you're looking at. This one, step up, has been in use. Come on, Raj. This one's been in use since 1838. Steeple was completed 1852. One of over 90 houses of worship we have in our historic district. I told you a moment ago it's a 98 square block area. So that means there's nearly one house of worship per square block in that space. And it's not at all for the reason that you think. Frankly, you probably didn't give it a second thought, did you? Why would you? I did my research. I read the travel articles. They all call it the Holy City. Yeah. Of course there's churches everywhere. And besides, we're in South Carolina. That means we're in the Bible Belt. Of course there's churches everywhere. Why wouldn't there be? Everyone down here is religious. Yay! There was one tavern in the city for every 13 people by 1700. Counting myself, there are 15 people on this carriage. We're a bar and change. Just us, okay? No one called this place the Holy City until we were a tourist town. We know what we're doing when the marks come to town. We know how to trim you. We know what we're doing. It's a tourist town. Like your sons would say, French Quarter? No one called it that till 1973. Marketing. The market was the red light district previously. French Quarter sounds a lot nicer, doesn't it? Yeah. Step up. Sorry, history's a buzzkill, folks. And also, the South actually is not the Bible Belt as you know it today until after the Civil War was over. And this city was around for 2 centuries before that. So that doesn't explain anything. The thing is, we were never founded with any kind of religious pretensions or anything like that, okay? We're not like the pilgrims you're going to hear about at Thanksgiving, all right? We're not founded by a bunch of Puritans either. No one is having a scarlet letter sewn on them here. That's not happening. We're here with one purpose and one purpose alone, and that is to make money. Yeah. It's a business colony, a proprietary colony, to use the parlance of the time, of the 17th century. We are founded to be a copy of, well, other colonies that were established shortly before we were by the English, in a similar vein, like Bermuda, see, and Jamaica. But Barbados is the blueprint for Carolina. Okay, come on, Raj. Makes a lot more sense when you look around, doesn't it? Pastel colors, stucco facades everywhere. An English town, wearing Caribbean clothing. Awfully colorful for a dour southern city. The legal codes are copied verbatim from Barbados. We were meant from day one to be a plantation-based colony. Yeah. We're growing high profit margin, luxury goods, Carolina gold rice, indigo, which is how you got blue back then, and Sea Island cotton eventually. Yeah. And we're using chattel slave labor on those plantations. Get a snag there, didn't we? Yeah, the plan from day one is for Carolina to be a slave society. The enslaved codes are also copied verbatim from Barbados. But those Africans came here involuntarily, though. How do you entice the Europeans and other folks from the old world? It's kind of a tough sell, you know? You may not live through the trip. I mean, my goodness. Only a third of the English even made it here alive in 1670. The first governor never saw the place. He dies in Bermuda on his way across the Atlantic. 3 slaves made it, but he didn't. So even on the very first ship, there are already Africans present. And their majority of the population as early as 1708. That's actually who you saw walking around here for the most part 200, 300 years ago. Would have been Africans and their descendants. All right, Roger, step up. Let's go. Get away from all this shit happening around us right now with these cars. But the thing is, if you do survive the trip, congratulations. Welcome to the new world. Ain't it great? It's hot, it's humid, bugs everywhere, it's disease-ridden. Oh, it's fantastic, isn't it? But the English are not the only ones trying to colonize this hemisphere. Spanish Florida is our original southern border. They are allied with the French against the English. They are all trying to kill you. Notice everything's all squished together around you right now? We are now inside the oldest part of the city still standing, the old walled city of Charlestown. And yes, walled city. A wall was built around the entirety of Charlestown to protect against the French and the Spanish. The only English settlement on this continent with a wall built around the entirety of the town. See? But it's not just the French and the Spanish that the English are worried about. Not having an episode, come on now. They think he'll be scared of cars. He only lives downtown, right? Just saying.
Uh-oh.
It's not just the French and the Spanish that the English are worried about. Because apparently, people already lived here. Hey, you hear about this? Some kind of like indigenous, native, something? Don't build over here. Well, they're here all right. You see their names on the creeks and islands and rivers of this area, like Wando and Wapu and Enisto, Kiowa, Ediwan, Yemisi, Bohicket. If it looks like a name that wasn't derived from Europe somehow, it's probably named for one of those tribes. There were humans here for 14,000 years before the Europeans showed up. And they were very friendly with the English. At first. The problem is, the English started shipping them off to work as slaves in the Caribbean. So now they are trying to kill you as well. Good job! You angered the locals. Fantastic. And you were friendly when you got here. Not anymore, though. But it's all right. You got a wall around town. You've got guns, cannons. Fine. Is that wall going to help you? See? Is that wall going to help you with malaria? Not really. You got guns, that's cool, but you can use a pistol on yellow fever? Really? Step up. Your cannons will do nothing against dysentery. I mean, like, you'll be a cannon. But you can't, like, use one on it, you know what I mean? I don't want to get too graphic, folks, but if you ever do get dysentery, you're just going to go and go and go until your bottom rots and falls out of you. You don't really come back from that back then. So who wants to come to Carolina? Nobody? All right. Thing is, you're okay. The colony's primarily export-driven. We're not really importing much of anything. It's pretty self-sufficient. The only thing they're importing are Africans. Otherwise, we're exporting rice and indigo and deer skins and the natives. But the ships arrive here empty. They need something to weigh them down on the way over. That's why these stones are here. These are ballast stones, used to weigh the ships down on their way from Europe or the Caribbean so they don't capsize on the way. Because there's nothing holding them down otherwise. They dump the stones out. We use them to make the foundations of the streets. Now, it didn't look like this back then. Notice we are not taking Roger down this street right now. He'd break his ankles. He'd be bouncing around like Jiffy Pop. It'd be a scene, man. This is covered with dirt, patted down tightly to make a level surface, and on top of that is a softer layer of dirt, a good few inches thick, and that is meant to be the absorbent layer of the street. The streets have to be kitty litter. I mean, people dump their trash out in the roads, chamber pots. You're not going to see a lot of front yards on this tour today, folks. You can't have a front yard in the city back then. The streets are a nightmare. I mean, there's a layer of those stones here underneath State Street as well. This is merely exposed to show the age of the city. That's all it is. State Street, when it was first laid out, was called Union Street. Why would we change the name? Which one, ma'am?
Al frente jardín.
No.
Ninguna de esta ciudad tiene al frente tiene jardín.
It's okay. You went for the easy answer. It's the United Kingdom they're talking about, not the United States. When you think of the South, you're thinking of cities that are much newer than we are. You're thinking of places like New Orleans or Nashville or Atlanta or something like that. We're way older than all those places. We predate New Orleans by 4 decades, Savannah by 5. I mean, before 1800, step off, anything coming into this part of the continent comes into this port. Anything leaving this part of the continent left this port. The wealthiest city in the nation per capita at the time of independence. Our prime time is none of that Civil War claptrap you paid for, okay? This is when the guys are still wearing powdered wigs. And they want to make sure they got their beauty mark in the right spot before they leave the house in the morning. And the guys are the ones caking on all the face powder and the makeup, too. And the dudes are the ones wearing the heels. They want to be taller than their friends, you know? If you ever hear somebody say there's no real men anymore, well, throw on a wig and some heels, man, because that's a real man 250 years ago, right? When men were men. But how'd they get people over here, though? We never really answered that. Well, that's why you see so many dang churches around town. If you come to Carolina and you pay a tax to the Church of England and you swear an oath of loyalty to the King, you may worship anything you want or nothing at all. So we're not very religious here. There's just many different religions here from an early stage. This city boasts the largest and wealthiest Jewish population on the continent before the Civil War. It's not in the Northeast. It's down here. Had we gotten a different route, we would have gone past Kahal Kadosh Beth Elohim, the longest worshiping synagogue in the country. It's been going since the 1730s. It's right across the street from the First Catholic Church, which was founded 60 years after the temple. Why such a difference? Well, there are some exceptions to our religious freedom. It's not as cut and dry as it sounds, of course. I mean, first off, if you're a Christian, you can't say you go to a church, unless it is the Church of England. That's the only church on paper. Otherwise, you got to call a church a meeting house. We're going to go on Meeting Street later. Where do you think a lot of meeting houses work? We're not complicated. And also, I have a decent feeling about the carriage, but we'll give it a shot. Where are my Catholics? We have a good pope. You can own it now. It's okay. Yeah, we're not allowed here. Step up. Yeah, the one group who can't worship openly, you see, in the Carolina colonies, are Catholics. Well, geez, what do we do to everybody? Well, step up. Come on, right. The French and the Spanish were trying to kill you, remember? Guess who's Catholic? The French and the Spanish. The English were militantly Protestant, especially when we're founded. I'll tell you right now, you want to blow someone's mind from the deep south, out in the boonies, take them to Mass. They do not know what to do with it. They walk out like they just saw somebody get sacrificed. They're like, what was that? I'm like, that was church. Like, oh, no, it wasn't. Like, yeah, it was. If you kept standing up and sitting down and kneeling, how do you know what to do? I'm like, there's a card. It tells you. It's easy, man. But that is when we're at our peak of prestige and wealth. It's when the Exchange Building is constructed. This is completed in 1772, a monument to our colonial prosperity. A time when there's more capital changing hands on this street daily, in one city, than in New York and Philadelphia combined daily, on one street in one city. This is where South Carolina will ratify the United States Constitution, making it one of only 3 buildings still remaining in the nation where one of the original states became a state. You got that, Independence Hall in Philadelphia, Faneuil Hall in Boston, that's it. This is your waterfront of the 18th century. You'd have had no fewer than 40 tall ships loading and unloading simultaneously in the port of Charlestown. 400 to 500 ships a week coming through here. You'd see nothing but masts and rigging on your left side, going down for about a quarter of a mile and another half mile behind you that way. That's why you're going to start seeing street signs that say wharf. They won't say street or boulevard or avenue. They say wharf instead, because they are, step off, they're the old wharves and piers that used to poke out into the harbor. You'll see the streets kind of like going down too, because the city, the water was there back in the 18th century, but not anymore. Clearly, the city goes for another block that way. Step up. Say again, ma'am. The thing you're standing next to? Yes, ma'am. In case you couldn't tell, the entire city is Rainbow Road. It really is. That's why I haven't told you anything about this, because nothing's ever happened here. This is just something the person at your hotel tells you that you want to see. It's not like you can go in any of them, it's just people's houses. I mean, they're pretty and all inside now. You know, the cheapest of them is probably going to run you several $1 million, but nothing's ever happened here. I mean, it's one of the longest stretches of pre-independence buildings in the country. And that's pretty neat, but some of these have changed color just since I've been a tour guide even. So yeah, I mean, they're all modern on the inside. Just the outside we care about, really, as far as the preservation is all. And frankly, it's the last place on earth I'd ever live. Because everyone's told to come down here. They see the little plaques on the buildings. They think they're all museums or something. That's why you're seeing signs that say private driveway, no trespassing. People have to put those up. Otherwise, people try to walk in the dang houses. All right, listen. This ain't no cheesy tour guide presentation. Everything I'm telling you on this tour is a shoot. That happens here. All right? A lot. I get asked if the homes have electricity. I get asked if they have air conditioning. I'm not going to pay $5 million for a house and then not have air in Charleston, okay? Forget that noise. But I don't really mess with the home prices very much because when one of these homes sells, you're okay. You're fine. You're good. Oh, you wanted to turn. Something to the right, just on the steering column. I can tell everyone around you what you'd like to do next. Probably an extra option, that's okay. But it's the outside you can see from the street. That's what the preservationists all care about. The interiors are fair game. Everything on the inside is completely modern. They have all the creature comforts and accoutrements you might expect for a multi-million-dollar house. It's just the outside you can see from the street. That's what they care about. So, step up. The homes have electricity, air conditioning, satellite dishes, whatever. It's all just tucked away where you can't see it, that's all. We're very good at hiding what year it is while you're here. You know, I mean, if you got rid of the cars and threw some dirt down over the roads, I mean, what year would you think it was walking around here? Of course, the giveaway would be how these are all brightly colored. I mean, this all would have been gray back then. Trying to simulate stone. There's no stone around here. And the English considered brick a poor man's building material. That's what local brick looks like. Charleston gray brick, the pinks and browns and mottled oranges and whatnot. That's local brick. And they consider that a poor man's building material. Well, we're stuck on over the buildings already, because that's what they did in the Caribbean. It's like early insulation. Kept you a little bit cooler in the summer, a little bit warmer in the winter. You take what you can get back then. So, step up. We're already stucking over the buildings anyway, so just start drawing lines in them. There you go, it's made out of stone. Check it out. Yeah, these are all just stuccoed over brick. There's even coining on the corners of some of the buildings, trying to simulate being made out of stone block.
But it's corrosive here, so it's going to get...
If you got any questions, I'm just talking. I'm glad one of us is, because I'm really not right now. This is a terrible effort. But we are about to leave dry land. I'm sober, I swear. When we get to the bottom of this hill here, this is a hill in Charleston we're coming up on. When we get to the bottom of this hill, we are going to go into an area that should be underwater naturally when it's high tide. At low tide, all you can see out here would be a white sandy beach, oyster shells, rocks, that sort of thing. We're leaving the walled city. We are leaving the 18th century and about to enter the 19th. Okay. Just scaffolding. Fine. You're going to see this little plaque between these two windows here. And that there is a marker denoting the southeastern edge of the walled city. If you were here in the first half, you'd have seen a massive diamond-shaped left of that right now. That's where we're situated. So when we get out here, G again, G. Yeah, we're leaving full-time dry land now. This is what we call found land. Not made land, not landfill, it's found land. It was there the whole time. We just had to go looking for it. What we do is we build seawalls, let the areas behind it dry out, and build on top of the dried out land we found fair and square. So it was there the whole time.
Wow.
You just had to go looking for it. A lot of it's trash, honestly. Not the people, I mean like the terrain. Like it's leveled out with garbage. A lot of it's garbage. I mean, also, when they brought the wall down in the 1750s, that provides more, material for land and stuff like that. We're down here on Charleston Harbor. This is what we like to say, since we are intensely full of ourselves. This is where the Ashley in front of you and the Cooper River to your left come together to form the Atlantic Ocean. You're welcome. We just made an ocean for you, that's all. No big deal, no sweat. You're looking southwest if you're looking forward, across the Ashley River at James Island. Now, I was born downtown, but I was raised out there. That's God's country. It's just you got me some rednecks. It's really nothing special. But then out to the left, you're looking southeast, across the Cooper River, behind that cargo ship is Sullivan's Island. Easy. And then, step up here. Come on, pretty boy. There you go. Good boy. And then that little single-layer birthday cake you see way out there, that is Fort Sumter, where the American Civil War began, in the wee hours of the morning of April 12th of 1861. Now these homes down here, though, the assumption is often they've all been handed down generation, whatever. Not the case. Because guess what? If you can afford a big, nice house in a city like this, you can afford to not be here most of the year when it's hot and smelly and miserable and disease-ridden. Step up. Yeah, the well-to-do don't live here easy, don't live here year-round. Yeah, they only live here during the social season, which is roughly mid-November to like early to mid-March, something like that. The cooler months of the year. when you can wear your elaborate suits and heavy dresses and not, you know, die from the heat and humidity and everything else. Right about now, like the first week of November, you would actually see the enslaved people of these families coming down here and preparing their homes for their return in about, you know, a week and a half or so. The original families don't live in these homes very long, like maybe 15, 20 years, and that's it. That's why very few of them even look the way they did when they were first built. They've had extensions built on, bay windows, design elements that wouldn't have been there. It's often said you really don't own a house in the city. You're more a steward of it for a while until somebody else comes along. Also, when you have, you know, 5 great fires, 14 land-falling hurricanes, 2 wars, earthquakes, you know, things don't look the way they did when they were first built. Stand, pretty boy. But we are coming up on a house that is still in the same family, though. That is still owned by the same folks. And I'm happy to say it is a house that you are allowed to go into. It is a house museum. Coming up here on the right. Not this house, not the Drayton house. That's the most architecturally confused house in the city right there. We call that medieval East Lake Queen Anne Victorian Chinese Chippendale. But what's next door, the Edmondson Alston house, this is still in the same family. And the homes are much bigger than they appear, too. Notice they're narrow on the street, but they go way back off the road. Way back off the road. Now, you can't go to the 3rd floor because the family lives there whenever they're in town. That's pretty common in the house museums, though. You see? Because you see, the homes were not designed to be like public spaces that there were going to be a bunch of people walking around all the time. They were designed just for families. So there's only one way up and down from the 3rd floor in most cases, so they don't let you go up there for safety reasons. But this place is so dang big, the building in the back is a bed and breakfast now. And you'll see a lot of buildings behind these big houses. A lot of those are kitchen houses. I mean, kitchens are outside the house back then. Fire's kind of a big deal. And also it's hot too. You don't want the oven inside your house. Also, the buildings outside the homes might be where Roger lives. But the building behind this house has a 2nd floor on it. Roger doesn't live upstairs. And that's also not your kitchen either. Those are your enslaved quarters for the men. The women will live in the main house, 3rd floor attic space, whatever the case may be. Who do you think's raising the kids of these wealthy people back then? It's not the parents. I mean, think about it for a sec. I thought we were all super Christian down here. I thought it was the Bible Belt, right? So why is everything haunted then? Why are there ghosts and spirits and junk everywhere? Because these kids weren't getting raised by European influences. They're raised by African ones. They're the ones who grow up to be the adults one day. They're the ones who set the traditions and customs that we have. See, easy. It's a $1,000 fine if they think I'm holding up traffic. So if I seem like a jerk with cars, that's why. I ain't got $1,000. But if there was a house down here that I would live in, you know, if I had my druthers, if I had the Powerball, and they said, all right, here's your $200 million, but you can't, but you're going to have to live on the waterfront, the Roper house. And you can see they're doing some work on it right now. But it's got green iron, the exposed brick, the green doors, green shutters. I love this. They didn't paint it black. God, I hate the black ironwork. It's so boring. The green, much, much better stuff. And you see, this is 1830s you're looking at. You see. This is where Prince Charles stayed. Well, back when he was Prince Charles anyway, back in 1989. He's King Charles III now, still getting used to that. But yeah, you notice around the door frame there is rope. Rope means a family made their wealth in shipping or merchantry somehow. The more rope you see, or the bigger the rope, the bigger the ships, or the more ships they've got. And that's some really thick rope there, people. But I also like the house because, well, it symbolizes change. How does a house from 200 years ago almost symbolize change, though? Notice it's kind of sitting at a funky angle. It doesn't line up with anything around it. Its own front fence even. It's because when that house was built, the Ropers had assurances from the city there'd be no more homes built down here. They were going to have an unfettered view of the whole harbor, the new park that was going to be down here, all that. And about 8 years later, the Ravenels built their house next door. How rude. But if it's good enough for the Prince of Wales, it's good enough for me, you know? But yeah, they're working on it right now, but it is gorgeous inside and out. Step up. Good boy. So yeah, so that's 1830s. Then you've got mid-1840s here at the William Ravenel house. And then all the way in the corner, 1852, the Louis de Saussure homes. That was the home of the wealthiest Jewish man in the city at the time of the Civil War. The one you see there in the corner. But this area is no man's land by 1865. Yeah, when they're firing on Fort Sumter 4 years earlier, people are all in here having picnics, drinks, celebrating, watching all the fireworks out across the harbor. But by 1865, these homes look like Swiss cheese. The streets are the surface of the moon. They barely resemble roadways anymore. For 587 days, the city is bombarded by Union artillery. That sounds like a long time. It was! That's the longest siege in world history to that point, is Charleston during the American Civil War. During that 587 days. Step up. Every 15 minutes on average, a cannonball's fired at the city. Now, a lot of these homes down here survive because they were built with hurricanes in mind. They got like really big, thick walls, like 1.5 feet, 2 feet thick in some cases. So those cannonballs are just punching holes in them and making dents. That's really all they're doing. But it's why we still find unexploded ordnance in people's backyards and stuff like that when they're doing road work. None of these cannons you see down here were actually down here during that time. They've all been brought in from different time periods. You see, they all had different purposes. Those ones with the wheels on them there, those should be on the deck of a ship. Those really shouldn't be on dry land. That's why some of these homes we're passing by have very differing ages on them. Like you might have a 100-year difference just next door or something like that. Some of the homes survived because the Confederates put Union prisoners in them and pretty much dared the United States, like, hey, you want to keep shooting at the city? You'll be killing your own people. And when you read the information tile on some of these houses, it'll say something to the effect of, every house around this one was flattened except for this one. Because when you shoot at something for a year and a half, you're pretty good at it. They were using the church steeples as target reference points. That's why all the white churches were painted black when we were fighting both the British and the United States, because you could see those white church steeples for miles on the night of a full moon back then. There's no light pollution back then. So yeah, you can see that thing like 10 miles away, man. But yeah, those big fat ones on the other side of the park, those are siege cannons. Those should be pointing toward a city, not away from one. But some of these homes have chunks of Confederate cannon iron sitting up in their attics. Because, well, when the Confederates abandoned the city in 1865, they just start blowing up the cannons that are down here so they don't fall into enemy hands. It's kind of what you do as an army, you know, you destroy what your enemy can use as you retreat. Atlanta was on fire when Sherman got there, folks. Sorry, the Confederates started that. The Union didn't make it any better, but it was already on fire when they got there. Except but yeah, that's why you got like 1892, the Via Margarita, across the street from 1772, the William Washington House. You see, this is the home of George Washington's second cousin here. President Washington did visit the city once in 1791, though. Stayed here for about 10 days. We'll see where he stayed later on. It's all out here in White Point Gardens. Very popular spot for weddings, engagement photo shoots, picnics with the kids, outings with the pets, yoga classes in the morning. But like I said earlier, this was all just a white sandy beach covered in oyster shells back then. The English called it Oyster Point when they first arrived. They start calling it White Point by the 1700s. It's the park you see today by the 1840s. We're the #2 destination in the country for weddings behind Las Vegas. They're the only ones that beat us. I guess we need Elvis. I don't know. But step up. Across from where all these weddings are taking place, see this little bed and breakfast nestled between the trees here. A beautiful Queen Anne Victorian style home completed in 1892. Today it's a bed and breakfast, but they're working on it right now, so you can't walk in there. All right, we've been kind of academic so far. Let's engage in some corny tour guide patois, all right? The story's legit, but I don't bust this out too often. You folks seem cool. But we call this the wedding cake house, or at least some people do. Not because it looks like a cake. I know they're doing great stuff with cake these days, but that's not why we call it that. This here was a wedding present for the daughter of a man named George Walton Williams. Touchy. Ladies, we're going to get a bit normative here, okay? Ladies, it is the day of your wedding. It's exciting. Now you wake up and you look on your bedside table, and there is something on your bedside table that was not there the night before. It is a satin pillow. But forget the pillow. Look what's sitting on that pillow. It's a check written to you for $75,000. The year is 1890. It's like $3 million now. Attached to this check is a note. It's a letter, and it's from your father. And it says, "Dearest Martha," your name's Martha now, all of you. "On the day of your dreams, here's the money to build the house of your dreams." Well, that's pretty sweet. Well, the parents of the groom aren't going to be outdone. They're the Carringtons, a wealthy family of jewelers from New York City, who know Mr. Tiffany on a personal basis. And they say, "All right, fine. Hollywood Bride wants to build a house for you. Cool, groovy. We will do you one better. We're going to send you on your honeymoon. So get ready, Churn, because you're about to go on a 2-year grand tour of Europe." Oh, don't be impressed. That's the standard length of time for a grand tour. Who raised you people? Now, while you're over there in Europe, you need some stuff for your new house, don't you? So buy whatever isn't nailed down, have it shipped back here, sitting here waiting for you when you get back in your house. So, a brand new home down here at the foot of Meeting Street on White Point Garden. And 2-year honeymoon in Europe. And a blank check while you're there. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Well, yeah, of course it does. Off they go into the sunset happily ever after. That young couple will be back in a couple years to enjoy this new house, right? Let's talk about that. So, everything was fine. Fine and dandy, hunky-dory. Until the young couple got to Paris. It's about this point that Martha Williams, George's daughter, who this home was being built for, she sends a telegram to her pop back here in Charleston from the City of Light. And I'm just paraphrasing here. But it says, so hey, Dad. So we're in Paris now, right? And we really, really, really like Paris. Like, a lot. It's not as hot here, less bugs, way more culture. We're just going to stay in Paris. We're not coming back to Charleston. Young lady, Dad's dropped a lot of coin on your new pad here. So, he sends a telegram back to her and says, Dearest Martha, you are coming back to Charleston. That's how you say it back then, by the way, it's Charleston. 5 A's and no R, just Charleston. But he's got a compromise for her. If she will come home to this home he's had built for her, here at the foot of Meeting Street on White Point Garden, he is going to give her something that reminds her of Paris every single day when she wakes up and looks out of her window. Now, Martha's bedroom window is this second-story corner window that you see here, this roof. Now, there's a window facing us on this side, yes. There's also a window on the back side. And every morning, all she had to do was open that thing up, look out the window, crane her neck around, look up on the roof, and a reminder of Paris every single day. There is a miniature Arc de Triomphe on the roof.
I'm thinking we're going for the Eiffel Tower.
Well, I'm sure you got questions. First off, they came back. Stand. You're fine. You're fine. You're fine. In fact, that bandstand behind you was donated to the city by Martha in 1910, so they came back. Also, that doesn't do anything. It's just there. It's not a chimney. It's nothing functional. It's built onto the house after the fact. It's got a brace holding it up, for God's sake. And why isn't it the Eiffel Tower? I mean, you think of Paris, it's what you think of, isn't it? The Eiffel Tower wasn't even 10 years old when this house was built. And it wasn't even meant to be a permanent structure. No one associated that with Paris. That had been around for like 50 years by that point. People knew what that was. You got to think fourth-dimensionally about this stuff, folks. You really do. You got to put yourself in the time period. My God, who's Dad? Who can afford all this stuff? Here you go, honey, have a house. Have a monument, flick of the wrist, no big deal, right? Well, step on. Dad's name is George Walton Williams, who had a fleet of merchant ships before the American Civil War, but during the conflict, he leases them out as blockade runners out of Charleston Harbor. He takes only gold and silver as payment. Works for both sides. Then he takes the gold and silver and puts it into British currency, because he didn't know what dollars were going to be good in this town when the war was over. So put it in something safe. And he did. And once the war's over, he cashes in all those British pounds, and he is worth over $1 million in 1865. A billionaire multiple times over in today's money. Easily the wealthiest man in the state at the end of the war. But 10 years after the war's end, the city's not recovering very quickly. We have a massive fire in 1861 that burns down about 1,000 buildings. The whole middle part of town was an ashtray. Touchy. And also we had that terrible siege I was just telling you about, too. And 10 years after the war's end, George Williams wants to build a house to show the world truth. You can invest in the city. We're on the mend. We're on the rebound. So he has built for him and his family. He's the largest house in the peninsula. If you're wondering how Dad could afford all that stuff you saw back on the corner, this is Dad's house. 24,592 square feet. 37 rooms and 35 fireplaces. Again, who raised you people? Seriously, come on. You couldn't get a fireplace in all the rooms. But notice every window frame, door frame, every other post in the cast iron fence is all rope. The family got into banking following the Civil War, but they never forgot how they made their initial fortune. But they go broke in the Depression. The bank failures of 1930 is what do them in. They try to sell off pieces of the interior to make ends meet. That's kind of what you did in southern mansions back then. Like late 19th, early 20th century. People who had like mansions in Rhode Island or outside of New York or Chicago, they would just transplant entire rooms out of these plantation homes and southern mansions to their home up there. They tried to make it a luxury hotel in the 50s. And they got all the rooms, why not? But the hotel failed, and the house fell into greater disrepair. I'll give you an idea of how much this place has changed in my lifetime. See, folks from outside the region don't get this, but the South I grew up in didn't look like this. In 1976, you could have had the largest house in the city with 14-foot high ceilings, a ballroom, all that, for $220,000. That's like $600 to $800 now, but you got a ballroom, man. There wasn't $1 million house in the city until 1990. A lot of these homes we're passing by were multiple condos and apartments when I was a kid. No one would have thought these were all museums if I was a tour guide back in the 80s. No one would have asked me if the homes have electricity or if they're lived in, because Everything looked used. It was like an old truck. It'd seen some stuff, you know? It's got dents and scratches in it. Pippa, the south of my youth is one of abandonment. It really is. It decay. There's stuff growing all over everything. That's the South I grew up in. Yeah, the guy that bought it in the 70s spent about the next quarter century and about $5 million fixing it up. It was a house museum from the 80s until March of 2020. Because the guy that owns it now, oh, he's an older man, but I know, all the guy that owns it now is an older guy, and after March of 2020, he suddenly didn't want a bunch of people from all over the planet, you know, walking around his house. Something must have happened. But yeah, it's been closed for 3.5 years to the public. I don't know when it's going to be open again. But the guy's a nice dude. He used to host Christmas parties for tour guides and stuff like that. I'll have ladies asking, is he single? I'm like, yeah, lady, he ain't looking for you, though. What they would have called in 1878 a lifelong bachelor. I'm told the third floor is very nice by the men I know who have been lured up there. Okay. Yeah. Anyway. But as wealthy as these people were back in the day, I mean, the homes look a little samey, don't they? I mean, apparently they couldn't afford an architect. They're all just narrow and neat. They just go back in their lot, right? Well, this is how they built the homes in the Caribbean, in Barbados. Either one-room wide or two-room wide, because that's all you got to worry about cooling off then. The homes are effectively sails, parachutes, and they're all designed with the placement of their portals and windows and doors, to maximize airflow as much as possible. Easy. The sides of the homes that are facing the harbor are going to be covered in openings. The sides facing away will generally not be so much. But you slept outside in the summer. That's what these piazzas are for. It's like an extra room outside the house. It's where you sleep in the summer. It's also where you relax in the heat of the afternoons. There's a reason why this part of the country has a very slow-paced reputation, folks. It's hot. You can't do anything. You'll die. During the middle of the day, southern towns just grind to a complete halt. Between like lunch and 5 p.m., you can't do nothing. What are you going to do? Hydrate yourself with a water system that doesn't exist yet? Yeah, so southern towns just stop. Everyone's sitting on their piazzas with their families, got their sleeves rolled up, showing off their elbows, pant legs and hoop skirts rolled up, showing off their ankles. Maybe you're just out here in your undergarments on a really hot day. But this now means you're exposing yourself. You're in a state of undress. You are indecent. It's a scandal. That's why these doors are here. That don't go anywhere. That door just goes back outside. Step, huh? Big man. So why is that door there, then? Well, it's called the privacy door. Obviously, it does not grant you any privacy. You can still see everything. But it's saying when you'd like to have some. If that door was open back in the day, it meant come on in. We're accepting guests, and we're happy to have you. If the door's closed, however, it means we don't want none. In fact, if you're caught looking on someone's piazza during those hours of the day, where they're expected to be showing some skin or whatever, or if the door's closed, you might get arrested. You at least get a fine. You're paving on them. It does not mean that today, all right? That was like 200 years ago. Please don't try to walk in the houses. I really cannot emphasize this enough. Please don't do that. I think that's also why people try to walk in the houses. Because they ask, what are these doors all about? And then we tell them, and they're like, oh, the door's open. They want us to go inside. Don't do that, okay? There's somebody from Ohio. They have no idea what's going on. That's Robin George, too. So violence all over the place. No, they just all up and moved down here about 25 years ago. Dang, it's funny. But some of these homes you can go into happily. This is another one of our house museums here on your left, the Nathaniel Russell House. Empty 1808. Empty. This home's claim to fame is a 3-story, free-floating spiral staircase inside. It has no visible means of support. It's attached to the wall, and that's it. Every step is supported by the step above and the step below. It's a cantilevered system. And it's all held together with wooden pegs. Not a single nail is even in that staircase. Problem is, I don't know who built it. I really don't know who built a lot of what's around you. Because they did not go home and write about it in a journal or a diary or something like that, or write a letter to someone about that magnificent staircase they helped complete. For a really simple reason. They're not supposed to know how to write. By 1800, the majority of your skilled tradespeople are enslaved people. Your best masons, carpenters, chefs, remember, that's who's raising the kids too. So yeah, they didn't go home and write about it because they're not supposed to know how to do that. I mean, the food you're eating while you're here, the way we speak to each other locally, it's all shaped way more by their presence than anything else. I mean, when you get off this carriage, it'll be time for your second lunch, right? Yes, you're on vacation, second lunch. That's the thing. You're going to see a lot of similar items on the menus. You'll see shrimp and grits on pretty much every menu, right? And everyone's going to have a low country boil or something like that, or a frogmore stew. You give a plate of shrimp and grits to Nathaniel Russell 200 years ago, he'll be wearing it in about 2 seconds. How dare you serve him that? He'll eat that junk. Ugh. For a low country boil, I mean, that's some corn cobs, sausage slices, shrimp, potatoes, bay leaves, throw it all in a big old pot, you boil it up, dump it out on the table, and you eat it with your hands. And it's delicious. You just dumped a bunch of leftovers on the table of that wealthy person. What are you doing? What were you thinking? You clearly weren't thinking. Yeah, you're not eating what the folks are eating in the big homes when you go to these restaurants. You're eating what the people are eating in the buildings next to the big houses. That's what you're having while you're here. Step-on, you're eating what the folks on the streets are eating. That's what you're having. Put all that water out there. Anybody can go out there with a net and just catch something. Seafood's poor man's meat. Now, you can't eat what the folks ate in the big homes back then, but, you know, they're eating stuff that has, like, wings and legs and can be hunted for sport, perhaps. Pheasant and quail and deer and that sort of thing. Now, you can eat what the folks were eating in the Branford Ori House there in the 1750s on the corner if you want. But you're going to be eating crow. I mean that very literally. A crow pie could be on the menu 270 years ago, but that was completed. How about gelatinated brains? What, still no good? Come on, we got pig's brains, sheep's brains, calf's brains. We got all kinds of brains. You don't want no brains? All right, no brains. Yeah, you're not eating what the folks are eating in the big homes. You're eating what they're eating in those buildings next to the big houses. That's what you're having. There's prison riots up in New England back in the 1820s. Prisoners were fed nothing but lobster. No one else wanted it. They got sick of it. They didn't want to eat that stuff back then. Yuck. Trash meat, ocean rats, bottom feeders. Look, what's those things? Now you pat the nose for it, right? Things change. It's how we speak too. Now the folks in these big homes, well, the folks in the big homes sound like you expected me to sound. I've had many a visitor get on my carriage and they are furious. They're beside themselves, positively apoplectic, insisting I'm lying about everything because I don't sound like this. You're not really from here. Where's your accent? You don't have an accent. Like, well, where are you from? Connecticut? Well, where's yours? I mean, the thing is, we never sounded like that down here in the Sea Islands. And the folks in the big houses had that big, loud, braggadocious, bodacious sort of southern accent where they say, I'm from Charleston, and you're from off. Yes, off the peninsula, somewhere insignificant. Wouldn't say Georgia, wouldn't say Chicago, nothing. Oh, they're from off. That explains everything. They weren't raised right. That's like 20% of the population. That's not how everyone sounds. Most of the people walking around weren't allowed to learn how to read or write the language. So guess what they do? They imitate it. And if that's how they sound, yes, sir, we kind of all start sounding eventually. Like them. This is Gullah and Geechee talk. This is a mishmash of imitated English, some West African, and some Caribbean that is woven in as well. Because Africans were generally not brought straight here from Western Africa. They would spend a year in one of those Caribbean colonies, for what slave traders called seasoning before they were brought here. Yes. Yes, shocking, I know. White people call something seasoning. Crazy. Crazy stuff. Okay, not a self-aware crowd. Season your food, people. Just saying. Anyway, I'm telling you how it sounds. Let's tell you how it actually sounds. So Roger's doing a great job. Despite all the noises, landscaping crews, everything else, he's being a peach today. He's being real good. But if I were to say Roger's doing a good job, I wouldn't say, boy, that sure is a good horse right there, Bo. You want to hear that go inland about 15 miles. It ain't down here in the Sea Islands. What I would say instead is, boy, you know he got no skills on him. I know what I said? Yeah. It's like if you've never been to Louisiana before, you're like, okay, what was any of that? Whoa. Slow down. What I said was, boy, it started a lot of sense. This is boy or them boy. E, no, and E is you. E can also be he, she, it, they, them. It's a great all-purpose pronoun for any object, concept, person. He is everything. So E, no, he got them skills on him. He's good at what he does. Notice I said an I didn't say in him or him, I said because the I's and the E's change into U sounds over time. You add the word up to adjectives and verbs to put some stank on it, you know? Like, folks, I guarantee if you walk around these neighborhoods tomorrow, it'll be a lot more quiet. Work crews ain't gonna be out here, no trash trucks, no food deliveries. God, on Fridays and Mondays, I have to just yell at my groups. I'm not mad at you, it's just really loud out here, that's all. Because them boy loud up. You may see some signs around town, don't like us working with Roger here. They couldn't even tell you what kind of horse he is. And them boy dumb up. When he filled up his diaper earlier, them boy done nannied up. If he's got some gas, them boy done pump up. If you got an itch downstairs, you'll bonky utch. Utch, not itch, utch. You also agree with people differently too. You don't go, I know, or right, or yeah. You say, boy in it. Say, boy, hot out shit. Boy in it. Just how we sound. Now, the server at your restaurant will not sound like this. They're going to throw in lots of darlings and sweethearts and whatever. They're from the upstate. They're not from down here. But the person at your front desk of your hotel is also not going to sound like this. They're from Ohio. They have no idea what's going on. But listen to the people weaving the baskets. Step on. Or the kids trying to sell you roses down around the market. Or somebody walking by on their phone on their way to work. Or, maybe some people bantering at a gas station counter or something like that. Oh, you'll hear it. But you're not going to hear it in the places where we carefully funnel our guests. You folks ain't ready for it. Sorry, you're really not. But at the end of this month, I am leaving town. I am moving out of here finally. Midlife crises happen. I'm going to arrive in Seattle on my 40th birthday. Can't wait. And the first night that I go out in Seattle, you know what I'm going to do? Speak Geechee all night. We'll see if anybody can pick it up. They will be the most confused people on earth staring at me like, dude, where are you from, man? Like, you sound like you're from Jamaica. You're white as a sheet. What is this? And it'll start getting really unintelligible as the night goes on, too. It'll just start getting real bad. But anyway, that's that. So, yeah, just how we speak, man. Everything's shaped by the Africans more than anything else. But you notice that everything's all smushed together again. We're back inside the wall, that's why. We're back in the 18th century once we get down here. That's right, everybody. I mentioned President Washington staying here earlier, and I said we'd see where he stayed while he was here. The home of Thomas Hayward Jr., one of our signers of the Declaration of Independence. Sketchy, you're okay, you're fine. This is where President Washington stayed for 10 days while he visited the city during his tour of the southern states. You're okay, you're fine. During his tour of the southern states in 1791.
Wow.
Completed the same year as the Exchange Building we saw earlier, 1772. This is the oldest of our house museums. Not just in terms of how old the house is, but also in terms of how long it's been a house museum. It's been a house museum for 100 years now already. Yeah, this place has been a museum longer than a lot of the houses in your hometown have been, like, well, houses. Had the first urban manicured gardens on the North American continent in the back. Gorgeous back there. Beautiful view of St. Michael's and everything else. That is so special back there. That is actually where I chose to propose to somebody, was in them gardens back there. She said yes at the time, okay? Like, everyone's like expectant. Like, I'm leaving town for a reason, all right? Enough about me. But on your right, you've got like 1730, 1760, 1800s. And then you look left and you see these. Why are these here? They don't fit in at all. You're okay, you're fine. Well, the thing is, it's a really pretty place, but a lot of ugly things have happened here. Like I said, we've had 5 great fires. Now, to have a great fire, at least 100 buildings have to burn down. We've had 5 of these. None bigger than the fire of 1861 that took out those 1,000 buildings. We've had 2 wars, been besieged by both the British and the United States. 57 days by the British, 587 by the United States. 14 landfalling hurricanes. Most recent one was Matthew in 2016. We've had other storms since then, but none that really made landfall here directly, though. And, well, we had some other gnarly stuff, too. Nearly 150 epidemics just before the Civil War, including one of yellow fever in the 1850s that killed nearly 1 out of every 10 people in town. And if you look ahead of you, St. Philip's is not standing up straight. It is leaning. Is it leaning to the right or to the left, though? Well, it is a church, so it's right-leaning anyway. Take it to left. Don't worry, it is leaning to the right. If you thought left, if we came from the opposite direction, it's left that way. You're right either way. It's all good. The back side of that church sank 5 inches. Stand. On the night of August 31st of 1886. When? Just before 10 p.m. You think it was at 9:51, because that's when a lot of the clocks in town stopped. But the city is struck, stand, by an estimated 7.3 magnitude earthquake. Now, if you don't know a lot about earthquakes, that's a big one, okay? That's a serious tremor, no matter where you're from. But this earthquake happens just 21 years after the end of the Civil War, when this place was already tore up from the other stuff I was telling you about. Not only that, but almost a year to the day before the earthquake, the city had what was at that time the worst hurricane we'd ever had. The Great Cyclone of 1885. Which was also the beginning of the end. I know, we can't avoid noise today, I know, touchy. That was the beginning of the end for our rice plantation. Because that's what made us so wealthy in the first place. All this low-lying tidal area was great for growing rice. But when hurricanes come through, ocean water gets pushed up into the river systems. So yeah, between 1885 and 1912, the rice plantations were all pretty much annihilated by hurricanes. So we had a massive fire, a war, a hurricane, and then an earthquake. Guess what, everybody? We are broke. We can no longer rebuild the city anymore. We're tapped. We got nothing left. And also, notice I keep saying that we were a wealthy city. I have not once said this was a rich city. See, wealth and rich are different things. Rich is a bad cat. I can just go buy something if I want to, but wealth is tied up in stuff. You know, like land, or a building, or a car, or people. And after 1865, a lot of money on paper doesn't exist across the South anymore. I mean, I told you there was a lot of capital changing hands on this street, didn't I? On Broad Street? I didn't tell you what kind of capital, did I? It's human capital. That's what we're talking about. You saw what happened in 2008. Step up. When a bunch of money on paper vanished across the entire world. So all we can really afford to do after the earthquake is repair the city. We can't rebuild it. You may have noticed a lot of our wooden structures don't really stand up straight. We call that the Charleston lean. That's not age, that's the earthquake. The frame structures had planks put in their wall to brace them up as best they could. But the brick and mortar buildings are a completely different story. They are too heavy for planks. And they're also far too expensive to rebuild. So how do you repair them then? That's what these circles are you keep seeing on the buildings. The circles are fine. The circles, the stars, the lion's heads, the iron crosses. Stabilizing rods going through the buildings. I mean, I see them pop out the other side of the structures too. Bolts and rods that ran the floorboards and ceilings of the buildings, and they met at a turnbuckle in the center. And what you do is you turn the outside of those things a quarter to a half turn, usually once a week. And you do this for 4 to 6 months, and then you stop. No one's touched any of those, but no one's touched any of these in a very, very, very long time. But over the course of those 4 to 6 months, those bolts slowly tighten up on the turnbuckle, and the whole building is brought back together and made usable again. So we screw the city back together. All we can really afford to do. That's a way of telling, you know, if something actually has some age on it. Because even new buildings here have to look old too. They look like they belong. But yeah, if you see those circles on a building, or those any of these patches plates as they're called, or like these strips you're seeing here, that means that building's from before 1886. Now there are some, I guess we'll call them enterprising types, who have started putting fake patches plates on the outsides of their buildings, trying to make it look older than it actually is. And you can tell when you see those, because you'll see the adhesive dribbling from underneath them and corroding the paint. They gotta repaint those houses a lot more often than the others. But we are getting back toward the market. We are hitting the home stretch. You only got us for a few more minutes. And maybe you're happy about this, I don't know. Step up. Anybody got any questions about anything at all? I'm a Sagittarius if you're wondering. That was a question. Okay, yeah, dude, like, why doesn't everybody just listen to us? You know what we're doing, my God. All right, anybody got anything else? All right, well, as we get back toward the market, we're heading back toward, well, more land that wasn't land originally. The market area was a tidal creek called Daniels Creek. I mean, hey, Cumberland Street, this road that we're about to cross over here in a moment, I mean, that was the northern wall of the walled city. And Daniels Creek, where the market is today, was kind of our informal northern boundary before the time of independence. But all the land around it was owned by the Pinckney family, and they willed it to the city in 1793 for use of a city market. This area was always meant to be the city's main grocery store, effectively. Now, there were markets around town, like beef markets, produce markets, stuff like that, but this was meant to be a central location for all to enjoy. But you may hear the term slaves market to describe this area while you're here. And while you're in Charleston, what do you think that's going to mean? Not the case. Slaves market is an invention of 20th century tour guides. No one actually called it that even when there was slavery happening. They call it the slaves market because they expect visitors to interpret it like farmers market. As in, that's who you see there doing everything. Buying and selling stuff. Okay. Okay. I know. It's an orange thing. It's weird. I know. See. Step up. Now, no human beings are bought and sold down here in the city market. It's just the city market. That's the name of the place. I mean, on a very practical level, there's simply no space to have auctions down here. Too much other stuff is going on. But that's who you saw down here buying and selling stuff. Or that's who's, down here buying stuff for homes that we were passing by, butchering the meat, shucking the corn, weaving the baskets, that sort of thing. The auctions are happening on the waterfront, on the piers and wharves right off the ships. That's where people are actually being bought and sold. Or on the ships themselves in some cases. So this weekend, if you're going around town, on. He's still smiling, happy bachelorette parties down around Rainbow Row. Ask him what was happening across the street. That'll kill the mood. Charleston is the entry point onto this continent for the ancestors of 4 out of every 10 African Americans. 4 out of 10, 40%. The former First Lady, Michelle Obama, actually traced her roots out to Sullivan's Island, out across the Cooper River. Yeah. Like I said, it shapes everything around you. And it wasn't that long ago either. I mean, you could theoretically today meet someone who themselves met someone who was born a slave. I mean, they'd be like really old. They'd probably be like in their late 80s or 90s or something, but they're still around, you know, people who have actually heard this stuff firsthand. I know, Roger, I know. It's okay, you didn't do it, we're not blaming you. But we have gotten to Roger's favorite part of the tour. That'll be in the end. He's got to get himself some water. I am going to take his temperature as well. Somebody else wants to. Everybody? I want to ask. I want to make sure you got your money's worth, you know? All right, well, we do thank you. Stand. There are 3 companies in the city. However you found your way to us. My luck or my pluck. I'm glad you made it. Roger's glad you made it. Hopefully you want to. Peppa. It's a beautiful day for us. It's going to be a beautiful weekend. But some pro tips from a local to some visitors while I have your ear. First off, eat local while you're here. I'm not going to tell you where to eat. You have free will. Use it. Read the menus on the buildings. You won't find a bad spot. Talk to the locals while you're here, too. We're all real friendly, I swear. If they're not, they just got it from Ohio. Give them some time. They're not bad people. We just have to adjust, that's all. And read all the plaques and all the markers on the buildings, because guess what, everybody? I didn't tell you anything. That was nothing compared to the whole. It would take me hours. Maps, charts, and graphs, just to give you what I would consider a basic introduction to the city's history. There's whole time periods I didn't even talk about. It just never came up. So yeah, you all we got to offer here, folks. So we're going to pull up here real quick, like. Wait for the ones that they can make it. Stand. She's going to come out here. She's going to take the GPS marker from you. She's also going to grab that tag off the back of the carriage so someone else can see the part of town we did. Thank you. And also, making sure that we didn't work Roger for too long. Because when that's back, they know he is back. I mean, once we're done like calling them dirty names and beating them and stuff, I mean, you know, then we send them out again. But we dangle food in front of their faces too. It's really funny. Because they want it really bad, and we just don't let them have it. Oh, it's great. No, he's going to have probably, on a day like today, God, he'll probably be sitting around for an hour before he goes out again. Like I said, this is the second of what will likely be 4 tours today. Pretty easy day for him, honestly. The most he'll ever do in a day is like 6. And that's like if it's really busy and we're like the first one's out and the last one's to leave, that sort of thing. Because they're required to have breaks between tours anyway. And we're not allowed in the residential areas after a certain hour. Ooh, good job, buddy. Buster your front bumper right off. There you go. Good job. I am not the dangerous thing out here, okay? But if you enjoyed yourselves, we're glad, we're delighted, wonderful. You've all got smartphones, you're going to pull them out when you go get a drink or something anyway, so do something productive when you get that thing out. Go on TripAdvisor. Go on our Google page. That's actually the easiest way to leave feedback. Just Google Old South Carriage Company. Say something nice about us on our page. They're employee of the month program.